Well, I've done it again. I bought another abandoned supercar. But this is my Eagle, and this Eagle is actually the direct cousin of the Nova. And what do I mean by that? Well, Nova licensed their body shell to Sterling in America. Then Sterling licensed that design to Cimbra, also in America, who modified it to have gull wings. And then Eagle in the UK licensed that body shell again with a few modifications and made the Eagle SS. So basically this is like a Nova that's gone around the world and come back 20 years later, has gull wings, and now looks really, really surprised. Now, long-term viewers will know I have a slight problem with buying fiberglass cars. They seem to find me, and I can't resist. But I know what you're all thinking. You're all probably just as shocked as this car looks. It doesn't look too bad, and that's because it's not too bad. It's not good. Like, this has been abandoned for the last 10 years, and it supposedly runs, but that's never actually the case. But it's got a floor, which doesn't have any holes in it, and it's got paint. I really don't know what has come over me. This really is new territory for me, and that's because this build is going to be totally different to anything I've done before. Whilst we continue building the Nova, taking it from the absolute pits that it was, bringing it back to life, this has a slightly different purpose. This is nowhere near ready to go, but it's a lot closer. So I'd like to take this on an international adventure to an extreme environment. But we'll talk about that later on. Before we can even think about adventure prep, we need to get this car back to roadworthy condition. It has been off the road for over 20 years. It's been in a barn for at least the last 10 years, and it hasn't been MOT'd since, I assume, the 90s. So in today's episode, we need to see if this thing runs, get it driving, get it stopping, clean it up, because I don't think it's been cleaned in 20 years. It might look good on camera, but it doesn't look good in person. And then we need to take it for an MOT and see how far away we are from getting this legally on the road. So first things first, we need to take a look at this engine. Any guesses? Put them in the comments down below.
But first, a message from today's sponsor.
So it is no secret that I like to buy a lot of weird and wonderful cars that have had quite complex lives in many cases. And that's all good fun, but these days sellers are getting better and better at hiding the history of cars. But with the help of today's sponsor, Car Vertical, you can rest assured and buy with confidence using their vehicle history checker. So all you need to do is get the registration or the VIN number of the car you're interested in, put it into Car Vertical's website on your phone or laptop, and it will pull up a report. And here is a great example. I've just put in the info for this Nissan S14. So as soon as you load up the Car Vertical report, you get a fantastic summary. We can see it's had 2 owners and there is already 2 warnings. As you scroll, the next thing you're met with is a full set of photographs that are available. And as you can see, this Nissan has had quite a life. As we go through the report, the next thing we can see is a positive. The car has never been stolen. Now this next one is very important. Mileage fraud is a huge thing, but as you can see with the Car Vertical report, in this case you have a full transparent history of the mileage check-ins. And with this S14, everything looks legit. But next up, we are back onto a warning. The Car Vertical report shows this car has been scrapped. This is a great tool because you can cover that up, but also it shows whether it's got any outstanding finance, whether there's any registration restrictions, all of that sort of thing. The Car Vertical report has loads of other features so you can get a complete understanding of the car's history, everything from a natural disaster exposure report, the specs of the car, the ownership history, and it gives you a complete timeline of the car's life. It really is amazing how much history they are able to provide, and it is also scary how good people are getting at hiding information. So a tool like Car Vertical is a must these days. So what are you waiting for? Please do go and check out Car Vertical. All of their information is down in the description. You can also use my code Hudson for 20% off your order. Another bonus is if your report for whatever reason returns no information, all of your credits are restored and you can use it another time. So a huge thank you to Car Vertical. Sponsors like them make videos like this possible, so go give them some support. What a beauty.
This is a 10,000 horsepower quad turbo 900 cylinder engine. No, actually it's a 1.6 out of a Type 3. So supposedly this Type 3 engine is a runner, which is new territory for me. Most of the cars I buy sight unseen don't even claim to run. So I guess we're just going to put some fresh fuel in and try and turn it over. So the car did come with a battery, which is again an unusual perk, but it was flat. So I pulled the battery out of my daily driver, which is the only working battery I have out of all of my cars, and hooked it up. The boot was remarkably big, but you could see the road from the back section, so your luggage is likely to get a bit wet. But the Eagle isn't about practicality, it is about style. So now let's see if we've just bought a stylish paperweight. Well, it's not seized, which is a better start than the Nova. But no fire. Combustion. That noise is actually the neighbour's lawnmower in the background. No, I'm joking. This is running, which never happens. And after lightly holding my foot on the accelerator for a minute or so, it didn't sound too bad. Well, it sounded like a Beetle, but, you know, a working Beetle. But as soon as you let off the accelerator, it would die. It had absolutely no desire to idle. And she was quite smoky. But she wasn't on fire, which is good. So, we've got a runner. Yes, it needs a little bit of help, but in comparison to my usual car problems, like not having a floor, a seized engine, this thing was practically concourse. Now, the first thing I wanted to check was the electric Solex carbs. Now, these have a little coil inside each of them, and as the engine gets hotter or colder, that alters the butterfly, helping the engine run better. Or at least it should. Based on some of this wiring, I couldn't tell if they were working at all. I decided to override the car's wiring just to do a check. I ran a cable from the coil to both of the carbs, and they were both functioning. When you gave them current directly, I was hearing a click, they were alive. There is a chance that the coils aren't set up properly, but I doubt it, so we need to dive a bit deeper.
Okay, so now we know that both of the idle cut-off solenoids are all good and working as they should. The next thing is to delve a little bit deeper into the carbs to find out why this thing isn't idling. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mess around with the mixture and the idle screw. Hopefully this will solve it, and just a baseline tune on that will make this thing idle. If not, we might have a block jet or something else. But to get to the adjustment screws, we need to take these massive wheels off. I'm not sure what these tires are from. They look like they're off a crazy American muscle car. They are so wide, but they're really cool. Anyway, let's whip these off and see if we can get this thing idling.
So what I'm doing is I'm tuning the carb just to a base spec that I found online. It might not be ideal, but it should allow the car just to idle. And well, if it doesn't, there's about a million other things it could be. It was still struggling to start, and if anything, it felt a little bit worse. Again, it would run if you kept your foot on the accelerator, but the second you let off, it was dead. After lots of small adjustments and getting quite cross, I wasn't making any progress. Usually when I get a new classic car, I immediately swap out service parts, like spark plugs, leads, caps, just so I've got a clean slate. And for a relatively small amount of money, it massively reduces the amount of time you waste trying to chase down problems. It was a new day, and with a little bit more enthusiasm, I wanted to do a check. I put some carb cleaner into the carbs, and I wanted to see if this would pick it up. It made absolutely no difference, so maybe this was spark or timing. Before I committed to my usual approach of replacing everything, I thought I'd inspect everything and try and clean it up, see if that would breathe some life into it. The cap looked fine. Everything was a little bit dirty, but not enough to cause concern. Same with the rotor arm. I gave it a quick clean up, but nothing major. Next up was spark plugs, and this was a nightmare to get them out. The access was horrible, and the amount of times I banged my hands and elbows, yeah, this was not a fun job. And these were pretty gross. Oily, sooty, they definitely needed a clean. A quick check for spark. Well, we definitely had spark, but then I noticed something a bit strange.
Okay, so welcome to the engine bay. I cleaned that spark plug, tested them with no issues, they were fine. And then I went to this one and well, I cleaned it up and it's absolutely fine. But when I went to reconnect it, I noticed it was very loose. And anyway, this spark plug wire is not meant for it. This is one of those weird little spark plugs and it needs a different connection, whereas this is sort of your generic HT lead. So it was basically just sort of kicking around inside there, probably making little to no connection at all. So yeah, I think it's time for new plugs and leads. I'm just probably going to get a whole new ignition setup. It's so cheap, why not? I'd hope we could just get this to work just for, don't know why, for the sake of it really. And after bruising my knuckles to oblivion, I got all the plugs out and we were about ready for some nice shiny new bits. Because these, I think they've served their purpose. So, another new day and a quick trip to the parts store. We had a full set of nice shiny new ignition parts. So hopefully this should help us rule out a few things. Now, I wish I'd done this immediately. I usually do, but I thought I'd try and be resourceful and, well, it didn't work. So, a fresh ignition system fitted. Let's try this thing out. Oh, that was exciting. Now, after that initial splutter, it wasn't firing at all. And after some fiddling, I realised we were completely out of fuel. And apparently that's quite important. Well, here we go again. Cock. After a lot more fiddling, adjusting and swearing and all that sort of thing, I was still a little bit curious why we ran out of fuel, because I definitely put some in there before, and then I found another problem. We had a fuel leak. It's the next day and I can literally smell the fuel from all the way over here, so I think it may have completely emptied its tank.
So the car still wasn't idling, and now we had a fuel leak. I wanted a second opinion, but whilst I was waiting for my friend to come, I thought I'd whip out that fuel tank, which in typical fashion meant completely dismantling the whole interior. As I removed this very small piece of fiberglass that was considered the seat, I was pleased to see that, amazingly, we had very, very solid floors, which makes a change. This thing is remarkably solid all round. It's a bit of a blessing.
Seatbelts are finger tight, nice and safe.
Okay, so the fuel tank is somewhere in there. And this thing was put together in a way that you weren't meant to dismantle it again without causing a lot of damage, so unfortunately, now was the time. And finally, there she was, our colour-matched fuel tank. Now, the following few hours would be some of the most frustrating of my life, and the removal of the fuel tank made the removal of the spark plugs feel like a walk in the park. So, yeah, this was not fun. Many hours of footage is cut into just a few seconds, but my frustration did eventually get the better of me. Whoever put that fuel tank in there had hoped it would never come out, but eventually I got there. And it didn't take very long to find the leak and why it was leaking. The whole bottom of the fuel tank had been sealed together with JB weld, which is good for most things, but not fuel. Even though the Eagle had been abandoned for over a decade, I figured it would be a lot easier to get it back, at least running. But as always, I was proven wrong. Another thing I decided to do was pull off all of this insulation, which was a bad decision. I regret this. And now, with rather heavy feeling lungs, the car was a little bit tidier, but it was in pieces. The next day, my pal Steve arrived. The fuel tank still wasn't fixed, so we were just running it off a jerry can. As Steve kept the throttle open by hand and the butterflies open, we noticed something. Maybe it was still our electric carbs, because they should not be flicking around like that. Do you remember when I said earlier in the episode I doubt they need adjusting? Well, they did. After setting them, the next thing we did was adjust the timing, also mess around a little bit more with the mixture screws. Now she was running, and quite happily, but it was definitely quite smoky, so I decided the next thing I should really do, which I really should have done already, was change the oil.
High merch.
So this was my first time working on a Type 3 engine, and I was quite surprised that it didn't have a traditional oil filter. It sort of had this sump plate, which is where all the oil came out of, and there was just a gauze, in theory, inside it, and that's it. That's your oil filter.
Okay. Here comes the oil. If there's any oil in it, that is. Oh, perfect. Look at that.
I was looking quite dark.
Oh, come on.
Okay, it is inspection time. This oil was already, from afar, looking pretty miserable. I had a look for any sparklies, and thankfully there wasn't any, but this oil was long beyond its optimum usage point. But possibly the highlight is the sump plate. Look at that. That is sludge.
What the heck? That's mud.
Or mud. I gave our oil cap a good clean-up, and the next thing to do was pull out our oil filter, or gauze, or oil filter gauze thing. At this moment it was hard to tell. There was no brakes on it, which is good, but yeah, just as grim as the rest of it. But a quick clean-up later with a lot of brake cleaner, it was pretty good. I think safe to reuse. I definitely want to replace this down the line, but it was good for now. Then time to reassemble everything and finally give this car some well-deserved fresh oil. I decided to bite the bullet and treat myself to an oil measuring jug, which was very nice. For the first time, I didn't spill oil everywhere. Now, I really hope this helps clear up the smoke.
So basically the oil is changed. I let it get up to temperature, let it cool down, no leaks or anything, which is good. Now I've started again. We're still having issues with the carb and it's still smoky, but now I'm going to let it run for a bit more, like 10-15 minutes, and see if the smoke starts to stop. It could be oil in the exhaust, it could be oil from somewhere else, it could be anything, but we've just got to let it do its thing and just see what happens. It hasn't been run for 10 plus years, so now it's been running for about 10 minutes and it's still really smoky. Right now, it's completely leaned out. The pin is completely, it's not running rich. This is completely leaned out. It could just be the fact it hasn't been started for 10 years. It's all varnishy in there, or we're burning something off. But it's running. But for how long? I think some of the smoke is something burning off the top of the exhaust, but I can't be sure. You can't really see it, but it's very smoky around here. Oh yes, you can. What might be helpful is to give this thing a proper blast, like put my foot down and drive it and just see if it clears itself. This hasn't had any action for such a long time. But to do that, we need to fix this fuel tank. So I've turned the car off, and as you can see, there's still loads of smoke coming out. I think some of the smoke is actually burn off from some oil that might have been sitting on the exhaust or something. You can kind of see it just sort of in this vicinity. Let's get this fuel tank in and just see if we can give this thing a bit of a push and see if it clears.
But then the rain came.
It's like working on cars in England.
But I did find that Gullwing doors have a particularly practical use. But after the rain cleared, it was time to attack this fuel tank. The first thing I did was clear away some of the degraded JB weld. Now, like I said earlier, JB weld isn't suited for fixing fuel tanks. It's not fuel graded, and basically over a period of time it starts to just come away. And after a little bit of scraping, I found the rust holes that someone was trying to cover up. So, like I said, JB weld is not fuel rated. So why is there a packet of JB weld and an old chicken sandwich packet? Well, that is because I am re-JB welding this. This fuel tank definitely needs replacing, and I've got a new one on order, but it's not coming for a few days. And I just want to test this. I want to be able to run this car properly and drive it and just see if we can clear out some of that smoke. And even though JB weld isn't rated for fuel usage, it would probably last years. It's quite amazing stuff, and obviously in the case of this fuel tank, it's lasted certainly over a decade, and the car was in some sort of regular use with this repair. Not something I'd recommend, but for this test run, I need it to last an hour or 2 hours, so I think we should be fine.
Before we go any further, I wanted to quickly say, please do consider subscribing down below. On average, only 20% of people who actually watch my episodes are subscribed, and people subscribing helps make episodes like this possible, so if you are enjoying this one, please do consider it. The more support I can get, the more silly cars I can save, which maybe is not a good thing, but consider subscribing.
After many hours, our fancy repair had set solid. This was definitely going to be adequate to fire this thing up. Then it was time to undertake the thrilling task of putting the fuel tank back in. Whilst I was at it, I did a nice upgrade and removed the garden hose pipe that was the previous fuel line and replaced it with a proper one. And now with the fuel tank in and the fuel line hooked up, it was time to add some fuel that hopefully wouldn't end up on the floor this time.
Yeah, don't put that last bit on camera.
But I did still give it a good check for any leaks. So, here goes nothing. And after over a decade of abandonment, the car was running from its own fuel tank. And after a little while, the smoke did begin to clear, and we hadn't even put any load on it. And after one last check for any fuel leaks, it was time to drive this thing. With one safety measure. At this moment, I also realised we didn't have brakes, which isn't good. But here goes nothing. I was taking it very carefully, and the rain was really coming down now. And it turns out the visibility in this car is bad even without rain, so this was a little bit challenging. But also such a great moment. After being forgotten for over a decade, the Eagle was alive, it was running, it was driving. But it wasn't stopping. Ooh. But that is for future Charlie to fix. At this moment though, the rain was getting a little bit too much for testing, so it was time to call it quits. But like every English summer, the sun decided to return for a moment, so testing continued. Actually, hold that thought.
Out of fuel.
With the lack of brakes, I was a little bit concerned to drive this at any pace, or, on the road, because that would be dangerous and illegal. But as I drove it around the car park and tried my best to see what I was about to crash into, the smoke did begin to clear, and with every moment it got better and better. And I'm sure with even more tuning and driving, the smoke would clear even more. Classic cars hate to sit, they need to be driven, and this was left for over 10 years. So it's amazing that it's running, it's come back to life, and honestly, it's doing pretty well. But I have to say, the vehicle lock is not good. You have to do about 100 turns to go around a corner, so this is not going to be fun in the Tesco car park.
I don't know if you can hear anything that I'm saying, and it's hard to concentrate because this all feels incredibly dangerous and sketchy. So my first driving impressions are, I cannot see anything, which probably isn't helped by the fact that I've not got a seat in. The lock on this car is appalling. It's definitely idling way too fast, but the idle screw is completely out, which is another fun mystery. But overall, the car runs, it's not blowing up, which makes an unusual change, which is quite good. I think I'm going to call it there because this is just dangerous. Oh, that is loud. So the car is running, it's driving, it's not leaking fuel, which is all good. It's definitely idling pretty high. I mean, there could be worse things. It's working. So compared to most of my cars, this is pretty remarkable. So the Eagle may be running and driving, which is really good, but we have a lot of problems. For example,
The driver's door, the passenger door, the headlights, this button, and this button, the door latches, the side skirt thing. But here are the things that do work. The horn, the windscreen wiper, the tail lights,
brake lights,
the radio, all of these dials, So yes, we still had a lot of things still to fix, but we also had a lot going for us, and after being forgotten for many, many years, the Eagle was coming back to life. And in just a few weeks, it would be on the adventure of a lifetime.
Okay, so that is a wrap on episode 1 on the Eagle. This car has come a long way in just a few days. It may not look like it, but this was abandoned for over 10 years. The big difference between this abandonment and the Nova is this was abandoned in a barn, the Nova was abandoned outside and became sort of part of the environment. So this is doing a lot better, but it still did put up a bit of a fight to come back to life. But the good things are the car is now running, it's driving, it's maintaining temperature, it's not got any rust on it at all. Again, that's what makes it such a different project and animal to the Nova. It looks brand new under there. It's like the cleanest chassis I've ever owned. And not that that's a particularly great standard, as most things I own are disgraceful, but even by normal people's standards, this is a rust-free car. But what is next for the Eagle and this build overall? Well, the next thing is we need to get this roadworthy. This is a 1987 car, which means in the UK it still needs to have an MOT. It's not yet 40 years old, so we need to get it through inspection. The immediate things which come to mind are we need to sort the idle out. We need to make it stop because brakes are important. Obviously put the seats back in. We need to get all the electrics working. We've got lights going everywhere. We've got just a lot of sort of maintenance stuff, major maintenance stuff. But I think in the next episode, that is the goal. We need to get this through an MOT. So we need to go over all of those fixes and yeah, get it road ready. As always, that will be much easier said than done. Chasing old electrical issues is never fun. And you know, these cars, they were built in quite unique ways. So I'm sure the next episode will be a bit of an adventure. Once we've got it roadworthy, we can start focusing on the aesthetics and prepping it for an adventure. The paint may look good, but it's quite tired. It needs a very good cleanup. And then I think we might do a color change. So please let me know what color you guys think I should paint it or wrap it or something down below. I've got some ideas and I think red is cool, you know, but I think we can do better. Make it all look a lot sharper, and then we can focus on the interior. The interior was in quite good condition, but it was very basic, and I would like to make it a slightly more comfortable environment, especially as we are taking this on a major European road trip. So once we've done all of that, then we can focus on the adventure prep. This is going to go to environments that maybe it wasn't necessarily designed for, so we are going to have to do a few modifications to help it cope. So a huge amount of fun to come on this build, so please do stay tuned. Don't worry, the Nova isn't going anywhere, but as we undertake much bigger tasks like full chassis restorations, you need more than a week. But this car has actually been on the go for the last several weeks, running concurrently with the Nova. So the Nova isn't going anywhere, this is just being built alongside it. But in theory, if everything goes to plan, you should see a significant update on the Nova next week. And I think you'll be impressed at how much progress we've made, seeing as when you last saw it, there wasn't much left. If you enjoyed this episode, and even if you didn't, please do like, share, subscribe, comment, all of that sort of thing. It really does help me out. If you'd like to support the channel further, please do check out my Patreon. It is linked down below. Over on the Patreon, I have all sorts of early access, behind the scenes, day-to-day updates on cars like this. They get to see cars like this quite a while before they come to YouTube, and it's just a fun way to support the channel. Another great way to support the channel, if you would like to, is merchandise. We have Hudson Auto merchandise linked down below. Loads of different colors of all our different cars on the channel. There'll be an Eagle one very soon, and yeah. But regardless, I'm just grateful that you're here watching, so thank you so much, and until next week, take care, and I will see you then. Oh, come on, who would do that? The brakes don't work, so I overshot the garage.